Letters from Pegasus is a clip show, but Stargate has done a pretty good job of not making that kind of thing obnoxious. It's also the calm before the storm because Atlantis' secret is out, and 3 Wraith hive ships are on the way.
So recommendations?
Other than panic?
Other than panic, yes.
Blubbering, wetting pants, fetal position, but my personal recommendation is the tried and true screaming and looting. There are no stores here, so I've taken the liberty of assigning everyone a loot buddy so you can just loot each other. Ford suggests taking the ZPM that they found previously but kept in its place because it was being used to protect the settlement of children from the Wraith. Dr. Weir rips him a new one over suggesting that. When I want your opinion, I'll ask for it. You did ask for it. Shut up! Rodney's suggestion is that they use what power they have to open a wormhole back to Earth. It will only open for 1.3 seconds, but they can use that time to send through a high-compression data burst. It might not work, but if it does, it could send everything they have and other important messages, like panic. So to help limit that, Shepard figures that they should see what exactly they're up against. Since they can track the ships thanks to Super Agent's technology, he and Taylor will take a puddle jumper to a nearby planet through the gate, watch the Wraith in stealth mode, and report back. Easy as 3.14. So, let's see how we can screw that up. To start, we pick a planet that Taylor knows personally to visit that is in the path of the Wraith attack, and that means she gets to meet all these people that she knows right before they're going to be culled. Still, it's hard not to feel sorry for these poor stick farmers out there harvesting this year's bumper crop. Yes, sir, we're going to have enough sticks to eat all winter. She just plans to warn them about the coming ships, but there's no place to hide, and going through the Stargate isn't an option because the Wraith have been culling many worlds. And obviously, once they cull a world, it's unsafe forever, so you can hardly head back there and wait until they've left before coming back to your home. No. The only option is to try to fit them all into a puddle jumper. Well, we'll limit it to just one family, Taylor says, which is going to go over very well with the villagers. As your leader, I'm here to tell you good news and bad news. The bad news is the Wraith are coming, and no one who remains will survive being feasted upon by the monsters. Good news, though, is I am out of here. Suck it, everyone who's not me. Well, McKay is pretty good at his job, so he has all the data compressed down to 0.3 seconds, so they have time left over to tell him how awesome he is. But Weir has a better idea. Let's send personal messages from all the members of the expedition. It'll boost the morale of people who are fearing Wraith will wipe them all out. Or at the very least, fear that Dr. Weir will yell at them for doing what she just told them to do. Meanwhile, there's tension in the puddle jumper over rescuing those people. Shepard arguing that the mission has to come first. Taylor arguing that caring about that over saving people makes them no different from the Wraith. Because that's the go-to whenever you've run out of logic. And the mission turns out to be damn important because those 3 ships are so enormous that they have their own smaller escorts with them. So the odds are not in favor of Team Atlantis, never mind our poor stick farmers below. In any case, the point is moot. While coming in, Shepard says they don't have time to stop with the Wraith ships right behind them, only for fate to mock him. The Wraith dialed in from elsewhere to prevent anyone from escaping through the gate, so they're stuck waiting this thing out. And that means we can wait for that dude and his family. And family is everything.
I miss you. I wish you were here.
I wish who was here?
I don't know. Who do you wish was here?
Nobody. I wish I wasn't bloody here.
This is where the clip show starts, because the letters from Pegasus come with flashbacks, despite the fact that they can't actually tell any of this to the people back home, because of security and all that.
If I get upset, then she'll get upset, and I can't have that.
We're Scottish. The only tears we like are when we punch an Englishman in the scrot. It's hard to find the right tone, I guess.
This is Dr. Rodney McKay speaking to you from my base of operations in the lost city of Atlantis, located deep within the Pegasus galaxy.
If Rodney ever wants to go supervillain, I think he can pull off that threatening ultimatum to the UN thing. During this, there's been some smoldering discomfort in the puddle jumper, as Taylor is upset with what she sees as callousness by Shepard and Ford, and Shepard frustrated that Taylor doesn't agree that when you fight an enemy as overwhelming as the Wraith are, with no possibility of reinforcements, it means that you can't take chances that aren't vital to the mission. Dr. Weir is showing why as she records all the letters to the families of the deceased. This is placed deliberately at this point to show the weight of that burden, to all the more emphasize how much we're supposed to hate.
This is a message for General Jack O'Neill of Stargate Command. I feel it is my duty to inform you of what I consider to be serious errors in judgment among the leaders of this expedition.
Oh, Lord. Well, I suppose we had to get to this sooner or later. I would say probably the single largest criticism I would throw at the Stargate franchise is the tendency to escalate adversaries. Though there are some exceptions, of course. Kavanaugh was introduced early on in an episode when they had to face the problem of a jumper stuck in the gate coming back, and he pointed out that there was a chance that under these circumstances, any additional meddling with it could not only destroy the jumper, but also be directed through the gate and destroy Atlantis itself. The rest of the team felt that continuing was an acceptable risk, so Dr. Weir told them to do just that.
I thought it was important to point out the risk.
Fine, you did. Now please, worry a little bit more about their lives and less about your own ass.
So, we've established that Kavanaugh is a terrible guy because he did his job and Dr. Weir insulted him for it. He followed it up by asking what the hell. Even if it were true that he was more focused on his fear than on the mission, we could indeed infer that. It doesn't change the fact that pointing out risks is his job. So dressing him down, in front of his team no less, seems a rather questionable demonstration of leadership. Well, rather than recognizing that her leadership only exacerbated the problem, Dr. Weir threatens to exile Kavanaugh to a barren planet. Wow, it sure is surprising that he would resent that and register a few complaints about his boss back home. But Dr. Weir is one of our viewpoint characters, hence everything she does is always right. The previous scene having established the burden of leadership, remember. And I'm not against Dr. Weir. This episode just happens to pile things up. But at the same time, I'm annoyed that so often when they have someone we're supposed to like behave inappropriately, they double down on it to say, no, this person totally deserved that. Hence, they escalate their adversaries. Thus, despite the fact that originally Kavanaugh went on to solve the last part of the puzzle and save everyone on the puddle jumper, he wound up with a character arc which is a long string of cowardice and screw-ups to justify the fact that our professional diplomat can't talk to her own staff during a crisis without making things worse. And if I could address this, and why not, it's a clip show, I've got the time, I think it's because of the tendency in a situation where there is a tense relationship between a civilian leader and a military one who are on the same side, and there's a gender difference, that they're going to make the woman the civilian and the man the military. I can't think of any examples of the reverse. Although keep in mind, if it doesn't have a spaceship, a robot, or a zombie in it, I probably haven't seen it. But I think there's a problem some male writers have in that situation when they're writing a female leader. They're butting heads with this male figure, so in order to show that she is worthy of the job, she has to dominate some kind of subordinate, and that means insulting them, thus showing that she's in control. She's the boss. She's the leader, and you can follow her. Brad Wright does that with Weir. Brennan Braga did it with Janeway in Parallax. Whereas Sheridan on B5, Picard on TNG, Mal with Firefly, and so on. None of those guys did that. They led by charisma. President Rosalind did too. So let's give that to Battlestar Galactica. I can't recall her ever just putting someone down just to show that she was in charge. And anything she said to Adama was to verbally smack some sense into him to not squander what little resources and lives were left to fight a war that they'd already lost. That's my take on it. You'd be surprised how easy it is to follow a leader with leadership qualities, whether or not they have boobs. Meanwhile, Shepard's left to go check out another disappointment, this Wraith beam which appears in the middle of the settlement. I say disappointment because they bring this thing up and never, over the entire 5-year history of the show, tell us what it is. It's a pet peeve of mine when a work wants to inject mystery but doesn't know what the mystery is when they add it. The whole point of the Chekhov's gun, not to be confused with Chekhov's Gungan, which says that if Jar Jar's in Act 1, he must be shot by Act 3, is that the superfluous should be removed. And I think that is related to this point. I mean, not precisely. The beam serves a story purpose. You can't get rid of it because you need it in order to get Shepard out of position. But if you're going to do that with a mystery, you have to explain the mystery at some point, or otherwise, to me, that's a mistake. If a murder mystery, for instance, has a person drawn out of the room by a figure who's outside the window, even if the figure's only purpose in the story is to get that person into that position because the author requires it, that's not going to be a satisfying mystery if who or what that figure outside the window was never addressed, right? Anyway, while he's gone, Taylor picks up a few strays, but decides the best defense is a good offense. So when Shepard comes back and says the gate is down so they have to leave, she gets indignant because this guy that they're waiting for is like family. And of course, that's why she's never mentioned him or visited him before, ever. She also keeps to herself that a Wraith almost stumbled across the puddle jumper while cloaked, as in, if he'd reached out his arm, he would have seen it vanish. So they're not exactly safe from detection here. But of course, things go well because when you're guided by your heart, things will always work out. That's the law of television. Of course, he's brought still more people again, heart and all that, so those who aren't snatched up by the Wraith are hauled aboard in time for Shepard to get them out of there. Now, you might say I'm siding against Taylor. Well, to be more accurate, I'm siding against the terrible way that she has been written this episode. Let me show you why. It is so important and so vital to get this dude and his family and bring them back to Atlantis that it is worth jeopardizing the mission and their lives, and possibly the security of Atlantis if the Wraith manage to use the ID signatures to open the gate. But bringing them to Atlantis is the only moral thing to do in Taylor's mind. And yet, in the very same conversation we get...
Earlier today, Lieutenant Ford suggested we steal from a community of children.
It's because they have a ZPM and we can bring them back.
Only to face death in Atlantis.
So follow this here. In the very same conversation, I mean, it's the same scene. We're told that Atlantis is a haven and not bringing people there makes you a monster. And Atlantis is a death trap and bringing people there makes you a monster. Well, pardon me for being Captain Obvious here, but if things are so safe where that ZPM is, and this guy's family is so small it's not going to be an inconvenience to anyone, then why not send the family with supplies to the kids' settlement with a message that their friends from Atlantis are asking that they be allowed to stay for a day or two just until it's safe for them to return to their home. And they brought their own food and everything so they won't be an inconvenience. This is also something you can do right now by yourselves instead of having to wait for Shepard and Taylor and possibly endangering their mission. The pieces fit together so well, so brilliantly, it's unwittingly hilarious to see this mind for dramatic conflict by completely missing how they connect. This is like some deep exploration of the depths of despair within the human soul while we watch a man struggling to figure out how to walk through a door while he's carrying a shovel. Point it in the direction you're walking, asshole, and everything will work out fine. Anyway, the problem with this episode is it's just so uneven. Some of the monologues work, some are quite meh. Rodney hinting on camera that he masturbates to images of Carter is cringeworthy to say the least. Overall, this episode is an example of fine, but it really could have been a lot better. But at least we can end the episode on a positive note. The signal is sent out and received by Stargate Command, a last message before they'll go dark again, but every confidence that these are not the final messages, no matter what some of them might have thought. There will be a chance for more again sooner than you think.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
I record this message on the eve of our darkest hour.